Welcome to Agenda Edina, a program summarizing the actions taken at City Hall that affect you most. I'm your host, Dorothea Marty. To support redevelopment of 5 acres of vacant land in the Greater Southdale District, the city has established a new tax increment financing, or TIF District. Edina has used TIF as a public finance tool to initiate community improvement since the 1980s. TIF districts and use of TIF is governed by state law. In Edina, TIF is used to provide funding for public improvements without increasing the tax levy, deliver affordably priced housing not provided by the private market, redevelop sites in a way that increases the tax base and delivers public improvements and benefits that would not otherwise be provided by the private market, attract investment that grows the local economy and enhances the community. The City and Housing Redevelopment Authority will provide financial support using TIF to an affiliate of Orion Investments to redevelop 7200 and 7250 France Avenue. The substandard buildings on the site were demolished in 2022 to remove hazardous waste and prepare the site for construction. In February, the City Council rezoned the site to allow an office building, hotel, or multifamily building and extensive site work to include new public realm spaces for circulation, gathering, and landscaping. The project is anticipated to result in a new street and several trails and sidewalks that would be accessible to the public, as well as a new public plaza.
In the Southdale area plan, it calls for a softer edge for new development. And by that we mean places where people can go, where the general public are invited to visit. So with this site, it's the first one on the west side of France Avenue that will actually deliver some of those improvements with the new trails, sidewalks, plazas, all available for the public use. So those costs are extensive. Without TIF, we would not be able to realize any of those public benefits.
Additional approvals of the proposed redevelopment are necessary before construction could begin. How do you think the use of carryout bags should be best regulated in Edina? The city wants to know. Earlier this year, the council directed staff to draft an ordinance proposal requiring merchants to charge a fee for all carryout bags. Carryout bags mean a bag that is provided by a merchant. It does not refer to bags already owned by the customer. Merchants would charge 5 cents per bag used by a customer and use the money at their discretion. Merchants would report to the city the number and types of bags purchased and distributed to customers each year. Staff is working to develop the proposed ordinance. To get feedback from the community, an online survey for residents and business representatives has been set up at bettertogetheredina.org. Virtual roundtable discussions will be held May 5th, 10th, and 11th. 20 select businesses will also be invited to interview with a city representative to share their input.
The city expects to regulate carryout bags. We know that it's important to residents. It's in the Climate Action Plan. This is a recommendation that came from the resident volunteer group Energy and Environment Commission. The question is how, and the city wants to hear from residents and from businesses. How should carryout bags be regulated?
Complete the survey or register for a virtual roundtable session online at bettertogetheredina.org. The council will likely review the proposed ordinance this summer. If approved, it would go into effect in mid-2024. It may come as a surprise to some Edinans, but the street named Lois Lane has nothing to do with Superman. It was actually named for a developer's wife. Transportation planner Andrew Scipione has a near encyclopedic knowledge about how and why our streets have their unique names.
I'm Andrew Scipione. I'm a transportation planner for the city of Edina. I've been with the city for 9 years. In one particular project, I was looking at a plat map and I realized that a property owner name was reflected in the street name. And I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. And that kind of made me think, like, how many other streets are named in that way? And then it just kind of took me down a rabbit hole. We're in Parkwood Knolls right now, which is one of the newer developments in Edina, but it was started in the 1940s by Carl Hansen, who was a Norwegian immigrant. So there are a couple streets here that derive their origins from Norway. Dover Drive and Telemark Trail are a city and a county in Norway respectively. And then Fieldway was originally platted as Fjeldveien, which in Norwegian means the mountain way. But that apparently was determined to be too difficult to pronounce, so they changed the J to an I, and it became Fieldway. So street named after a mountain got flattened to be a street named after a field. There are also, some people may not know this, but there are a number of streets in Parkwood Knolls that get their names from car models. So we just passed DeVille. There's also Biscayne, Malibu, Continental, Newport. Those were all car models that were produced in the 60s and 70s. So here we're in the President's neighborhood, and one of the main streets in President's is Maloney Avenue, which gets its name from Michael Maloney, who was an Irish immigrant. He came to the U.S. when he was 7 years old, and then he enlisted in the Civil War with the Wisconsin Volunteers at the age of 16. After his service in the Civil War, he bought 160 acres here in Edina. The street that carries his name approximately bisected his property. Later in life, he served as a clerk on the school board, and he was also a member of the village council. So another street that was part of the original Normandale plat was Normandale Boulevard. Martin and Andrew Tingdale were Norwegian, like Carl Hansen, so Normandale is named for them. Of course, today, where Normandale was, we have Highway 100, but all of the frontage roads on either side of the highway still carry that original name, Normandale Boulevard. My coworkers joke we play games where they just like point to some random section of the map, or they yell out a street name and I can just find it really easily on a map. We've got it on an online database too, but for a lot of people it's easier to just come to me and be like, "Hey Andrew, what's the history on the street?"
Andrew continues to look for information and stories about any street names in Edina, and he is happy to give presentations. If you have a story or your group would like to hear more, contact Andrew at ascippione@edinamn.gov. May is Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. This year's theme is Building Legacy Together, our community's journey of strength and resilience, paying tribute to generations of Asian Americans and Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islanders who paved the way for greater opportunity. Thank you for watching this episode of Agenda Edina. I'm your host, Dorothea Marty.